Hello, everyone. Welcome to our November 2020 San Diego Imperial Region Guided Pathways Office Hour. I'm Wendy Smith, Guided Pathways Regional Coordinator with my esteemed colleague and partner, Stacy Teeters. Our topic today is credit for prior learning. Our Guided Pathways Office Hours are a forum for cross-pollination. Our format today will be conversational. Each month, we feature one or more guests speaking with us on a particular subject. The rest of our time is open comment and Q&A about anything and everything guided pathways. For colleagues planning to share and learn from each other, we are recording this session. During our office hour, technical questions might come up or questions we don't get to. Feel free to ask questions through our San Diego Guided Pathways listserv. Our guests today are all from Palomar College. They are Benjamin Mudgett, Articulation Officer, Candace Rose, Credit for Prior Learning Coordinator, and Nicole Rowe, Associate Dean of Workforce Development. We're honored to have them here to discuss their innovative Credit for Prior Learning pilot. Welcome, team. I'm going to turn the conversation over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for having us here today. My name is Candace Rose from Palomar College. I am faculty at Palomar College in the Media Studies Department. I teach cinema, and I am also the Credit for Prior Learning Coordinator at Palomar College, working with Ben Mudgett on this great initiative over the past year. I also work with Ben through our curriculum committee because I help to do technical review as well. So I'll turn it over to Ben.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben Mudgett, Articulation Officer at Palomar College, and I also teach in business. Happy to be here with Candace and Nicole, sharing where we're at and leveraging guided pathways.
Awesome. All right. So I'm actually going to share my desktop so that I can move back and forth between the slides in presentation mode, but also into getting onto the web. So there we go. All right. So credit for prior learning, as many of you I think may or may not already know, this is a new initiative within our state, and all of our community colleges will be certified or hopefully certified by the end of December, that they are ready with their policies in place to be offering credit for prior learning for our students. So these are actual pictures from our students, our programs at Palomar College. One is our military leadership program over here at Camp Pendleton. Fashion and design is offering credit for prior learning eligible courses, as well as the automotive technology.
All right, so credit for prior learning, as Candace had mentioned, was approved by our Board of Governors a while ago, and we're all now supposed to have this policy and procedure in place. And so many of you may be hearing this for the first time and wondering, what is credit for prior learning? Credit for prior learning is the validation of a student's learning that has already occurred, and crosswalking that learning to existing outcomes on our courses. It's faculty driven, where the faculty determine whether or not their course could be assessed through prior learning. And once that decision has been made, the students then have the opportunity to validate their prior learning to those student learning outcomes that exist on the course. And this is absolutely a lever that can advance students towards retraining, reskilling, upskilling their skills, re-entering the job market in after this recession, where the state guesstimate or approximates about 6 million Californians could possibly be eligible for this type of credit. And so this is about validating students' prior learning, acknowledging their experiences and their experiential learning, and onboarding them so that they can get closer to their career goals, or they can get closer to their transfer goals. It increases self-efficacy. It increases their ability to persist, and the retention rates are higher for these students. These are adult reentry students who have knowledge and learning that has already occurred, and when they're validated, they're that much more likely to succeed and stay with us. This is not about assessing learning for experience. This is assessing learning for the learning that has occurred in their experience, in their experiential learning, and validating it to the course outcomes. And so we have, throughout our work, worked very closely with our Guided Pathways team. This work is all related to Guided Pathways, all 4 pillars, all the way from keeping, clarifying the path to keeping the student on their path, and ensuring that learning has occurred. In working closely with the counselors, with student services, with discipline faculty, and with student learning outcomes, the coordination of student learning outcomes, we've developed a robust credit for prior learning initiative at Palomar that is ready to advance students further. And it's directly related to the vision for success goals of lowering inequity gaps, increasing transfer rates, increasing employability skills, and further advancing their efforts. The next activity, if you want to go to the next, if you want to bring it up, it's just a quick word cloud.
So I'll go to this. So you guys are going to see this, where you get to enter a word. What word comes to mind when you hear about CPL? And you'll hit submit. And he just put the link into the chat. And this.
Okay, so we're just kind of getting a temperature gauge in the room, where you're at on CPL. Maybe, so what comes to mind when you think of credit for prior learning? And you can enter it multiple times, but just get a gauge for where we're at. So in a word cloud, for those of you that haven't seen one, the most responses come out in the largest font. And so the largest response is equity, another initiative, probably is coming from some initiative fatigue, maybe. Student-centered learning, veteran competencies, fairness, challenging. These are all common concerns that we see, and common words that come to mind when we do this with other groups. But what's really impressive is that by far, every time we're presenting, the equity piece is front and center. And that's really what it comes down to. And so as we are going through this for Guided Pathways, you'll begin to connect this to all 4 pillars, and then see how you can leverage Guided Pathways in this work. Thanks, Candace.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's go on to the next slide here. So we've got some highlights for you. And then we're going to take you into what we call the faculty CPL coordinator scope of work. So we broke this up into sort of 4 categories when we stopped and kind of reflected on Palomar College, where we are now with this, and sort of where colleges can go, or what they can look ahead towards, right? Institutionalizing credit for prior learning is engaging those stakeholders right from the start, the faculty, the student services, admin, and articulation officer, because really this takes everybody. It does take that entire team to make this a success on your campus. Doing the credit for prior learning policies, which all colleges need to have certified by December 31st of this year. We put together a faculty credit for prior learning coordinator scope of work, which we'll review in a moment. Reporting to faculty, senate, and curriculum, keeping those 2 committees in particular. We also presented to many other committees on campus, but making sure that these 2 committees are really engaged and involved and updated on the process. Aligning credit for prior learning with the Guided Pathways pillars, and you saw how we did that sort of with the color coding on these slides, but also you're going to see in our scope of work how we detailed that as well and aligned them with the pillars. Transcribing credit for prior learning, that definitely was an institutional project, and then our statewide partnerships with the Chancellor's Office. Faculty champions. So Ben and I have worked so far with 12, I would say now we're up to actually 14 disciplines with, since I made these slides, 14 disciplines with almost, with about 90 some eligible courses. So now this does include our credit by exam courses that we've had traditionally, but this is also including our portfolio eligible courses, our military transcript CPL eligible courses, and our industry certification eligible courses. This does not include our AP, IB, or CLEP. I did not include them in that number. The credit for prior learning course crosswalk inventory sheet, we created that. It's also in the toolkit that's out there that the Chancellor's Office put out there, but it's just a nice way for faculty to sort of take a look and assess their own courses, which ones would be good for credit for prior learning, but then also allowing the articulation officer and on our campus, we have a credit for prior learning coordinator to work with that faculty to ensure that their course is a good fit for credit for prior learning, and then also professional development. We have been keeping our counselors very engaged and very involved from the very start when we first started our meetings. And we currently at Palomar have one of our veteran counselors has also been sort of designated as our credit for prior learning counselor, which has been very helpful. So she is sort of our go-to counselor at this time, but we are also keeping all of the faculty, or excuse me, all of the counselors engaged and up to speed on credit for prior learning so they can offer their transfer expertise to our students. And then finally, that student experience, we've been working on that quite a bit this semester in particular, and that is we've developed a credit for prior learning student intake survey to assess and identify students that could be great candidates for credit for prior learning. We have a credit for prior learning website along with a course list, and you can go to Palomar College, go to our Palomar College website and just type in CPL into the search and you'll find that there. We have also are in the process of developing our credit for prior learning approval process form, and I would actually call that our petition form. We've sort of changed the name a little bit. It's our petition process form. And we've even developed a military leadership apprenticeship program with the Marine Corps, which sort of was launched from the credit for prior learning movement, if you will, or initiative, I guess I should call it, inspired us to create some partnerships with our military partners in our region.
You know, this is all again tied to guided pathways in the sense that the student experience is all about those first three pillars, and the faculty champions are on pillar 4, ensuring that that learning is occurring or had occurred. And the institutionalization of credit for prior learning, it just the stakeholders involved, or everybody is working in tandem on all 4 pillars at the same time, making this happen.
So what this is we put together, Ben, Nicole, and I put together a scope of work for the credit for prior learning coordinator, a statement of work, I should say, for the coordinator. We really took a look at 3 main objectives. One was objective 1, continue to integrate credit for prior learning into Palomar College campus culture. So this was after our first year of we were the pilot college, and we got a mini grant from the Chancellor's Office to sort of lead the state in doing credit for prior learning. So this scope of work we put together is for us essentially, you know, our, I guess you'd call it our year 2 that we're in now. So we had the first objective, continue to integrate credit for prior learning into Palomar College campus culture. We have the continue to institutionalize credit for prior learning at Palomar College. And then we also have continue to ensure that Palomar College incorporates superior practices in CPL and share with regional and state partners. But you can see that we broke this into sort of activities, performance outcomes, and actual deliverables. And then over here in column E, we also identified what we thought was a guided pathway pillar that sort of aligned. You're also going to see the green and sort of the yellow. The yellow was what we sort of looked at for an implementation duty, something that just needed to happen to implement this program. And then the green would be sort of ongoing stuff. I'm going to let her in right now. So we'll just take a minute or so for you to kind of look through this if you are logged on. And we wanted to open this up to letting you ask us questions. And we also do, we can answer questions here. And then if you do have questions for maybe specific things that we are doing for credit for prior learning processes, things like that, we can certainly address that as well.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Some of the questions that have come up, and I guess I'm wondering how you guys addressed them, are very, very granular and specific, but they've come up kind of repeatedly. And one is issuing of grades versus pass, no pass when you're actually giving credit for courses. And we ran up with the issue of that we have a limit, we have another board policy that puts limits on the number of pass, no pass. So we're kind of grappling with that. We also know that there's issues with articulation for certain courses that don't allow pass, no pass grades versus actually letter grades. So that's one of our questions, is balancing grades versus pass, no pass as you're giving credit for these courses, and articulation with that. So Ben, I'm glad that you're here. And the other question is our student, because right now with credit by exam, if our students get credit by exam, they still have to pay for the units of that course. Are you guys having students pay fees for the courses that they're getting credit for as well? Those are my two questions.
Here, Ben, did you want to address the first question and then we can talk about fees, because it looks like Nicole is here as well.
Good questions. The limitation is a local issue, I think, that you would want to discuss. We started this discussion not even knowing that we were going into CPL a few years ago, and we ended up adjusting our limitations. And so you probably, at the local level would want to begin that conversation. But the Title V language is clear that students should be able to choose the grading option that is available on the course outline of record. Now, obviously, we can't assign a grade to learning that already occurred, like an industry certification or military work. It would probably be a pass, but portfolio assessment and credit by exam could be a grade following the course outline of record grading policy. If the grading policy doesn't allow pass, no pass, then we wouldn't allow pass, no pass either. Does that help? And I mean,
yeah,
articulation is certainly a concern, and that has to be balanced. And articulation officers should be engaged. This is a multifaceted project, and balancing our articulation with the needs of our students, keeping in mind that, because we're a community college, we're serving diverse needs. Not all of our students are transferring. And so we don't want to hold our students who aren't transferring and who are interested in entering the job market or who are needing to reskill. We don't want to hold them because of CSU or UC articulation challenges, but we have to be mindful of them. And so we've identified a counselor who would be making sure that these students are making the most informed decision possible before electing this type of credit.
Thank you. That does help. So you have not run into specific disciplines having this issue. So as an example, I'm in the math discipline, and if a student, I'm thinking particularly international students, come with a vast mathematics background, and we're making them take all these courses over, which is ridiculous, but they need those courses on the transcript in order to transfer to UCs and CSUs if they're in any STEM major whatsoever. So my issue is, and UC is particular, pass no pass is unacceptable in any of those STEM classes, period. And
Correct.
so it's C or better. I mean, there's so many restrictions. And so I don't want to have to give them an exam just to, you know what I mean? So we're grappling with it. So I don't know if you've had, or I'm grappling with my own head, but if you've had certain disciplines that are really having issues with how to do this so that it's efficient for the student, and yet we're honoring their learning in an accurate but a way that's still going to help them in the future.
Candace, do you have the crosswalk sheet that we use?
The one for the faculty?
Yeah, when we're sitting down and just creating the flags to be aware of.
Just so you guys know, this is our Credit for Prior Learning website. This is the Credit for Prior Learning materials and resources page where I'm grabbing all of this. So this guidance system memorandum was what I had open. That's a really nice, easy reference to look at Title V. And then what Ben was just talking about is our template for Palomar College CPL inventory sheets. I'll bring that up.
Tony, there are so many stakeholders that are involved in this. And so we've created a process where when we're discussing these issues, we take everything into consideration, including your concerns that you just mentioned, because those are valid. And so, if we indicate that a math course is CSU and UC transferable, it's in assist as major preparation, it's in an ADT, those are all flags that end up on here. And the more flags we have on here, the more we have to scrutinize what we're doing and making sure that we're not going to cause challenges or problems for the student. And in your example, we're probably limited. CPL is not going to work for every discipline. It's just not. But it works quite well for others. But where letter grades are needed, and that right there is going to limit our ability to use some of these assessment methods.
Yeah.
But this is what we use just to sort of figure out, okay, where we're at, and we just mark every category so that we're aware of every possibility that might occur.
Mm-hmm. So the next part of your question that you had asked was about the fees. And at Palomar, we have traditionally had credit by exam, and we have had fees. And I think most colleges have prior to credit for prior learning. We're right now talking on our campus about can those fees be removed? Is there a way to make this not a burden for our students? And as you can see here, it says a district may charge a student fee for administering an examination, provided the fee does not exceed the enrollment fee, which would be associated with enrollment in the course. And it says, well, districts may charge a fee. Districts should keep student equity in mind when determining fees and ensure fees do not limit access to CPL by placing an undue financial burden on students. Well, depending on the student, it could create a burden, especially if that student needs to do wants to do multiple courses or needs to do multiple courses. Like you said, if they're international, they're paying those international rates. If they're military, but they want to transfer to a CSU, let's say, right? There's no guarantee that the CSU would accept their military transcript CPL or their portfolio CPL, but they've got, if they could do it by credit by exam, then that transfer could be allowed or accepted. And so that student may only have that option to do it, but again, the fee might create a burden. So I don't know, Nicole, the question was asked, where are we at this with Palomar? And I know
yeah. So what we're doing right now, we're really trying to research we're really trying to take it from an equity mindset and really trying to figure out what impact these fees would have on our students. So trying to figure out about financial aid and does financial aid cover these fees? We are struggling with this at Palomar because historically our financial aid has not been allowed to cover these fees. But actually, as we're digging into other schools, for example, we looked at Miracosta, and somehow they're able to use the BOG, or formerly the BOG, to cover those fees. So what we're realizing is it's a difference between if you're charging for the units or an enrollment fee versus a fee itself, right? And so what we're trying, and that's very similar with when we started looking at veterans benefit. Bill would actually cover the cost of the exam, but every exam actually impacts goes towards their months allowable. So they only are allowed to receive, I think, like 30 months of aid. And so every exam takes away a full month, and they lose all of their BAH and housing funding for that one exam for a whole month. So when they look at, okay, I'm going to get a $300 fee or $250 fee waived, but then I'm losing out on potentially $2,000 of BAH plus books plus a whole month, right? You lose a month of your service. It's not beneficial to them. So we're just starting to have those conversations on our campus. What's challenging is that we have historically charged these fees. So I'm sure everyone's aware we have to look at the fiscal impact on the college. If we're no longer going to collect those fees, what fiscal impact does that have for the college, and what, because that's going to be a loss of revenue. But then, when we think about it from an equity perspective, it really would be more beneficial to students. So right now we're kind of doing a cost analysis of how many students have been utilizing this and really what that revenue loss would be. And then also really trying to dig into those details about what aid can cover the credit by exam fees versus unit tuition charged, and kind of how we go about that. So right now we're in kind of that research stage, hoping to really get some decisions here very soon. But right now, we are technically still charging fees, but we're kind of gathering information to put a proposal together for possible policy change in that sense.
Thank
Did
you.
that answer your questions?
Absolutely. Thank you.
And, to open up the dialogue with the rest of the participants, have your colleges come up with solutions, or are you having conversations around this already?
Yeah, is anyone else addressing this yet?
At Grossmont, we are in the process of switching over from our very archaic transcript. I wouldn't even call it software. So we are having some conversations, and in that is this transcription process, because I think in order to make CPL effective, you really have to have your transcripting process in line, in addition to the policies and procedures. So we have our AP, we have our BP, we're at that next level of inquiry, I think, still of how does this filter down, and how do we institutionalize it? So that's where we are. But I think with our transcripts, we are having this discussion, and CPL is an area of focus that we need to make sure that we can capture with our transcripts.
Being able to transcribe CPL on our transcript of Palomar has also proven to be a challenge. So we got a head start, and we had our policy in place. We were all ready for implementation, and then and our enrollment management services team have all been in the loop for the last year. Everyone's excited about this. And then when we actually started doing the work, we realized that our system wasn't really ready for it. So we had to put a lot of work into really bringing it. We had to do a whole rehaul of our entire transcript. We had to do a whole redesign. So that's one of those things that I think we didn't necessarily realize on the instruction side of the house. Just how much work was going to go into rehauling, really redoing that system.
Is that part of your information available as a, like, how your transcripts changed? Like, what were the pain points that you noticed, and how that redesign ended up having to happen? Is that a resource also available?
So I don't know if we went into those details when we created these resources. We're still working on it. We should have it finalized by this semester. I think we just saw almost our final versions of it. We had to work with a Microsoft consultant to get it all done. So I don't know that we have that yet.
Right. I would recommend you can email so our email to get a hold of us, the easiest email is the CPL, Credit for Prior Learning at Palomar. Just email me. It just comes to me. And tell me you're interested in our transcript info. We should have that, I think, within like a month, and I could have some good screenshots and things like that I can share out with you. Yeah. And I'll just put it in a folder with a flag to remind myself to get that to you. You could do that.
Absolutely. And then which software do you guys use? Credentials, or which software do you guys have? Do you know?
We're using PeopleSoft.
Oh, PeopleSoft. Oh, okay.
We hired a consultant to do much of our transcript redesign.
Yeah.
But I would highly encourage your student services implementation occurring at the same time. I think if we could go back and do it over again, I think, at least for me, it would all be happening at the same time.
Say more about that, Ben.
Well, the transcript redesigning involves a lot of programming, extensive programming, and programmers are already at capacity. And so getting it prioritized in, having the work done in a semester without knowing their workload may be unrealistic, right? And so bringing them in early and often. And Nicole was instrumental as our administrator supporting this project, because Candace and I are faculty leads, but faculty leads only have so much sway with a programmer. So the with Nicole leading this as an administrator and working very closely with both vice presidents and having high-level administrative support, we were finally able to get there. But we absolutely needed that administrative support to make it happen.
Yeah, I think like Ben, what you said, if we could do it over again, what we really felt, so we brought everyone into, we did a lot of really great stakeholder meetings early on when we first started, and everyone got really excited. And then we as our team focused on getting the policy in place and then getting faculty on board. And I think like what Ben said, if we probably could have started talking about the transcripts then, and then they would have had more time rather than coming to them in January and saying, okay, we have our policy in place, we have these faculty, let's start working on the transcript, and expecting them to do that in a semester.
Naturally, I think we're working in the opposite direction. So I think it'll work.
Diane has a question. Can you talk a bit more about how you're connecting CPL to the pillars of guided pathways? How does that translate into guided pathways? So for our project, we started backwards from the student experience and then worked to it was an inverted funnel approach, thinking about what is the student experience going to be. And Candace could demonstrate that student experience a bit, but we were very much concerned with lowering the barriers, having high touch points, making sure that students are receiving the counseling that they need, the education plan that they need, bringing in the discipline faculty to provide the discipline faculty expertise to make sure that this type of learning assessment is going to work for their career goals because they're the experts in their field. We have faculty that created videos, faculty who have created interviews with open-ended questions so that they can really begin this dialogue and this relationship. They want to know who these students are, who they're assessing, and really get to know them. We're integrating Canvas support solutions into guided pathways so that we remove as many barriers. And then the assessment becomes between the student and the faculty, and that relationship is there and that rapport is established because many of these students may be brand new. Our faculty want to know them. They want to know our students. And so it's about, clarifying that path and keeping them on that path. When students receive this credit and they feel validated from their learning, they're more likely to persist and retain. And so that, which means higher success rates for them and into either the into their career goals or their transfer goals. We've learned through the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning, CALE, that once you have a really robust CPL program, you can start partnering with industry. And so if industry is needing certain skills or certain credentials, and they're providing part of that training, but they need the community college to advance it, you can find ways to crosswalk and partner with industry through prior learning assessment. Right. I don't know if anyone else wants to add anything.
I think we really started looking at it from the student. I think what Ben mentioned about, we really looked at the student experience. So even going to pillar 1, clarifying the path, when that student applies to Palomar College, we created an intake survey. So as students are, it's actually connected to their English and math survey assessment, right? One of that it's all connected in that same one. So when students go into their their My Palomar account or their eServices account for the first time, they have to answer questions about their math placement levels and things like that. They also answer questions about their prior learning experiences and if they believe they have any. And then that way we can be proactive. That survey, right, that data all goes in, and then we can be proactive in reaching out to the student and talking with them more about what those prior learning experiences were, and if those are, and then getting them hooked up with a counselor right away. So it's really thinking about the student experience and from the very beginning and being proactive and trying to get them to think about that.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that we are in the process of creating a petition form that's fully electronic, and notifies people along the way so that we can go in and sort of see or check where the process is. And a student can initiate the credit for prior learning form, but the very next step is that they meet with a counselor. They need to have their education plan on file. But just to have that information, to have that discussion with the counselor to make sure that this is the best path for them. Once they've determined that, yes, this is the right path, this is also a resource as well that a student can access at any time, which is our Credit for Prior Learning website. And right now it lists our courses that we currently have available. I'm updating it this week, actually, to add a few more, but students can filter by assessment method, by their meta major, by their discipline, and they can see, maybe they are interested in fashion. Well, they can come here and take a look and go, oh, that's so cool. I've worked in the fashion industry, and these courses, I can do a portfolio review. This is my pathway for these courses. So on the form that they're filling out, if they picked portfolio assessment for Fashion 100, the next step then is that does go to the faculty, the chair of the department, and they can the chair can reach out to the student or the individual faculty can reach out to the student, and they can do the next step. And as Ben mentioned, some departments have a web page with a video where they're showing their students video that basically walks them through here's what you need to do for your portfolio. And then the faculty member can also talk to them to make sure that this is the right path for them, that they are ready to do this. We don't want someone to put time into it if this is not a good fit. And then the Canvas course is created. The portfolio is uploaded right into that course. We're using ePortfolium, which is now owned by Instructure, which is Canvas. So it's all integrated beautifully. The student submits their portfolio, the faculty assesses that portfolio, and the faculty have already created a rubric along with other discipline faculty. So it's not done in a silo, it's done as a team. They've already got their rubric and they assess that portfolio. From there, they can either do a pass or they could do a grade. And then it gets put onto that form. That form gets sent over to records and evaluations. They record the grade for the student. It is transcribed for the student, and the student now has that credit. So we really have been thinking this through of how can we make this simple and easy for our students from point A to point Z. And we should be done with that form by the end of just, hopefully by the time we leave on break. Any other questions for us, you guys?
I had one in case there's not questions yet from the rest of our colleagues. How has this been maybe helping to open up conversations of ensure learning on your campus? Granted, we've kind of heard from some colleagues that a lot of great work has been going on around pillars 1, 2, and 3, clarify, getting them on the path, and helping them stay on the path. But some colleges have been struggling with really deepening the work around ensure learning. And how has this been happening at Palomar College so far?
We have integrated our student learning outcomes coordinator into this process.
Yep.
And so anytime if a faculty member expresses interest in this assessment method, it needs to be approved by the department. And the department needs to have a rubric on file so that every student is assessed fairly and equitably. After that, it goes to, we vet it with our student learning outcomes committee, and to ensure that those outcomes are able to be assessed in this way, because sometimes the outcomes can't, or they need to be more clear if we're going to have a student write a portfolio. ACCJC is very clear that credit is awarded based upon the outcomes. And so, we would then work with those outcomes to either affirm them or to improve them or to expand upon them. And so learning outcomes is critical.
Yeah, it's actually through this work that we've had faculty realize that they really need to put a little bit more work into their SLOs. So we were working with our computer networking faculty member who was reviewing a military program. They were talking, and the two, our military contact and our faculty member were talking about what, well, that doesn't really align. In this class, we really do, we build an actual computer and we do this, that, and the other. And but then Candace actually pulled up the SLOs for that course and, was completely different. And so the faculty member actually said, I guess I'm going to need to revisit the SLOs and really think about what we actually want these courses to be teaching. And so I think that it's really highlighted the importance of ensuring that you have really good student learning outcomes, that you have appropriate, active, or updated student learning outcomes in your classes.
Yeah, that's a good summary. I noticed someone put in here, can you please explain how you're using industry certification as an assessment method? For example, we have some new courses in our computer science networking, AWS cloud computing, and there are industry certificates that align perfectly with those courses. So the way we're doing it, the website right now, if you were to look today, doesn't have all the industry certification industry certificates listed. Hopefully by tomorrow or the next day once it gets updated. I've been working with the faculty to actually put the titles of those certificates in there. The way that we're actually doing that part of the assessment is in that form, the petition form, if it's an industry certification, and they'll know what it is because they'll look at the website and they'll go, oh, I have that QuickBooks certificate within these dates or whatever. They would upload it actually into the form so that when it gets to the faculty can look at it, can make sure it's the right dates, it's recent, and all of that. And if it's not, they can kick it back to the student with a note or two or whatever. And if it is, then that they've already determined this equals this, and they can just tell records, yep, they get that pass, they get that course because they have the right certificate. So it's not for all of our courses, obviously, that industry works, but we've got like our automotive, they're very specific. They tell me exactly what the training is, all of the course numbers. There's like 10 courses that fit into this training within these dates. Awesome. I'm going to put that information on that website. Students that have that will upload it. The faculty will put their eyes on it, and then it's a done deal. They can send it to records. So that's how we're doing it.
It also should be noted that the industry certifications, their outcomes are similar to ours. In fact, ours is based upon industry. So all of our any industry, it's based upon what the industry outcome requirements are. So our faculty are like, well, if somebody's master certified auto technician, their outcomes are exactly the same outcomes as this particular course, and so they should have credit. And they're able to validate those outcomes. Now, something to note in terms of Pillar 4, and much of the CTE curriculum has to go through 2-year review cycles, and so it's important that when these courses come through review, that their CPL assessment comes through review too. Because if the outcomes change because industry changed, then we need to reassess, is CPL still a valid method? Because or does anything need to change? And so they're kind of joined together a little bit.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Ben, because one other thing we're working on right now that might help some of you as well, especially those of you in curriculum, is our instruction office asked if basically what we're doing is in the back end, they're coding all of our credit for prior learning courses and putting some kind of identifier on the methods of assessment. So they have that within a table. I don't know how it's all working. Like IS is doing this table, but basically this form can access that table of credit for prior learning courses. It's also for gathering data, but in Meta, we use Meta for our curriculum. We are we are creating another tab in Meta that is a credit for prior learning tab, and faculty will need to go through and identify, is this a credit for prior learning eligible course? Have you worked with the credit for prior learning coordinator and completed the approval form, yes or no? It also has which methods of assessment. And so that allows our tech review team on our curriculum committee to also look through. It reminds faculty they need to update it. They need to review it. Every time they're reviewing the course, they are also reviewing their credit for prior learning. So we're really institutionalizing it, right? It's becoming, that was the biggest, I would say, one of this semester is one of the biggest. We did it. I was really excited. When instruction said, we really need to code this and we need to do that, because they kept asking me, Candace, where's all this information? I'm like, it's on my spreadsheet. That's it. Like, it's in here, it's in Ben's brain, in Nicole's brain, and it's on a spreadsheet for the website. I'm like, I really feel like we need to do more with it. And then all of a sudden they were like, yes, this clicks, let's do this, this is. So like Ben was saying, if you can get all of your, I don't know, honestly, I don't know if we could have done this sooner because I didn't know what was needed as a faculty member. I don't know, but if you could start this sooner and get everyone on board, I'll make it a lot smoother.
Great. Thank you so much to our Palomar colleagues, Ben Mudgett, Candace Rose, and Nicole Rowe for sharing about your innovative and equity-minded credit for prior learning and guided pathways related work that you are doing at your college. So as we wrap up our meeting today, we do have a few brief announcements. So let me go ahead and do a screen share here. So many of you are also aware or already aware of the California Community College's biweekly webinars. This is a great resource for information and learning about innovative practices happening across the state. The next webinar is happening tomorrow from 9 to 10 a.m. in the morning and on the topic of student-centered enrollment strategies. So for those of you who are interested in topics of this nature, continue on the fun tomorrow morning. And the link has been posted by Margaret in our chat. We also look forward to connecting with you again next month on December 15th for our next San Diego Guided Pathways office hour. We will be joined by guests to discuss the role of classified professionals in guided pathways. So please register today using the posted link or share with any of your interested colleagues.
Hi, I'm Margaret, one of the assistants for the San Diego Imperial Guided Pathways team. As a reminder, we have a SDI Guided Pathways events calendar and a YouTube page where we put videos and recordings of our events. So please check that out.
Thank you, Margaret. Margaret's our wonderful student assistant, so we're so lucky to have her support in all of this. And lastly, if you're new to our regional Guided Pathways events, we highly suggest and encourage you to connect with our local community by joining the San Diego Imperial Guided Pathways GP listserv. Get notifications about upcoming events, highlights on innovative practices happening at local or state colleges, and many other resources which can help to support you in the work that you are doing at your college.
Thank you all for coming. We hope this discussion helps your college continue this important equity work. And in the spirit of the season, we want to thank each of you for your commitment to students and their success and safety. We're grateful to work in such an amazing region with amazing colleges. Please be well and have a great week.
Thank you, everyone.